I see our time has reached 1 p.m. Central, so we will get started with our presentation for today. Welcome. We are so delighted to have you with us. This is the fourth session in a Zoom educational series sponsored by Women of the ELCA. Today, I'll be your host. I'm Jenny Norris Peterson, a women's philanthropy consultant, speaker, and writer. Previously, I worked as a philanthropic advisor with St. Olaf College, Luther Seminary, Lutheran World Relief, and LSS of Minnesota. Today, our primary speaker will be Brenda Moore, who has so many interesting things to share with us. But before I introduce her, I'll read the land acknowledgement from the ELCA churchwide offices. The churchwide office of Women of the ELCA is located on the original and ancestral lands of the Kickapoo, Peoria, Potawatomi, Miami, Ho-Chunk, and Sioux people. We give thanks for these tribal nations, and we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of the various regions represented by all of us who have gathered today for this session. We recognize and honor our Indigenous siblings, supporting the resilience and strength they have shown worldwide. Well, today, it's such a pleasure to have Brenda Moore as today's presenter. She's a certified fundraising executive with decades of experience working at the intersection of faith and philanthropy. Previously, she was a gift planner with the ELCA Foundation. She was Vice President for Advancement at Gustavus Adolphus College, Director of Development at Concordia College in Moorhead, and also Director of Development for several small ministry organizations. Today, she's president of Brenda Moore and Associates, LLC, a consulting firm focused on solving fundraising problems for faith-based organizations. She'll be talking with us today about philanthropic possibilities, giving through your estate plan, and she'll be involving us in the conversation. Brenda, welcome.
Hi, Jenny. So good to see you and to see some other familiar faces and just to welcome friends from all over the country. It's really good to be with you today. I've been looking forward to this, and I also have been following along if you have been a part of some of the previous workshops. It's been wonderful to see how each one kind of builds one from the other and into the next topic. And that's really what we're going to do today, is kind of move from some of what you've already learned if you've participated or seen the recordings. And we're going to go into kind of a new arena. It's been hinted at in some of your previous sessions, but today we're really going to think about how it is that we might be able to be giving to some of our favorite ministries while we still ensure that our families and our loved ones have what they need and what we want to share with them. And today we're going to actually kind of zero in on story. I love to teach about some of these ideas based on stories. And so we're going to share some stories about how other people, other women of faith, have thought about these things over the years. And also, I hope you're going to be able to have the chance to engage in your story. We're going to have a couple of breakout sessions where you'll have the chance in a small group of 4 or 5 to have some conversation that will get you thinking about your story. So don't worry, I'm not going to inundate you with all kinds of spreadsheets and numbers and all kinds of illustrations. We're going to talk about some great ideas using the gift of story. And before we get started, though, I'm going to actually take myself off of share here. Forgive me. I meant to do that earlier so that we can see each other better. And we're going to have a bit of a devotional time together. And I promise you, first of all, I'm not a pastor. The way I think about devotions might be different than the way others might think about devotions. because we are right around the corner from however you refer to the celebration, Halloween or Day of the Dead, and then moving into All Saints Day, we've got this this very sweet holiday right around the corner. And so today our devotion is going to center around this Hershey bar. We're going to start by thinking about chocolate. And I'm really sorry that I'm going to torment you with this actual Hershey bar that I have in front of me. I'm sorry that you don't have one in front of you, but if you do, feel free to run and get it. So we're going to do a little chocolate bar theology to start our devotional time together. And if you're comfortable using the chat feature in the Zoom meeting, I'd really like for you to get ready to chat. And Jenny's going to watch some of your responses, but I got some questions for you that's going to engage you in some Hershey bar theology. All right. And the first question is, do you remember what the cost of a Hershey bar was when you were a child? Can you remember buying one of your first Hershey bars and what it cost you? So weigh in, use the chat if you know how, let us know. Jenny, you can tell me what you're hearing.
I will. And someone responded, it was a nickel.
A nickel.
And I think it was 10 cents. I'm guessing 10 cents because when I bought a pack of Wrigley's gum, that was 5 cents. And I'm guessing the Hershey's was more. Someone else says, I didn't buy any. Not a big fan of chocolate, prefer
Not a big
caramel.
fan of chocolate, that's okay.
And Susan tells us, I'm thinking 10 cents.
10 cents. Yep.
Any other thoughts from people? That's what I'm seeing so far.
When the Hershey bar first came to market, it was 5 cents. It was a nickel. Jenny, by the time you and I were buying these years ago, they were 10 cents. And in fact, it wasn't too long ago that you could buy one for $1. And today I spent $2.09 at the Quick Trip on this one. Okay. So now that gives you some appreciation for inflation right there. Okay. Okay. So started out as a nickel. Now, here's the next question. What do you remember? Now, if you don't have one in front of you, you can't actually taste it, but what do you remember about how this tastes? What word would you describe? What word would you use to describe how this tastes? And if you don't like chocolate and you only like caramel, you don't have to answer this question. How would you describe it? Jenny, what are people saying?
Creamy and smooth. I'd say scrumptious. Melting sweetness.
Wonderful. Yes, everybody.
Luscious.
Luscious.
Love
Yes.
that word.
Absolutely.
The smell was fabulous. Melted in my mouth. Oh, Jennifer Armstrong Schaefer says, just how the town of Hershey smells. It tastes like Hershey smells. That's interesting. And Anna Jetson says, part of a s'more.
Yes, they're very good. Yes, we use those. My last name is Moore, and so we have s'mores at the Moore's parties.
Love it.
Yeah, so rich, so yummy. It's just like cream. I mean, it's all over your taste buds. It's so yummy. Okay, last question. Who remembers what it looks like? What does it look like? How would you describe what it looks like? Okay, I'm about ready to give you a hint.
I'd say a grid.
A grid, okay.
Yeah. 8 sections is a guess.
8 sections, but it depends on the size of the bar, right?
Someone says dark brown and segmented.
Okay.
Gwen says you can break it in parts.
Yes.
Oh, Susan Sommerfeld says gold bricks that are brown and engraving of the name, breakable pieces. Look at how many times it says Hershey's. Gwen says like a Lego.
So, yes, you are all correct. This one happens to be in 12 pieces. But why is it broken into 12 pieces? Or why is it cut into 12 pieces? It was meant for sharing.
Love that.
Don't you think a Hershey bar was meant for sharing? When I was a kid, there was no such thing as any one person getting a whole Hershey bar. If grandma bought the Hershey bar, it was meant to go around, and the pieces were split and they were shared and they were divided, and everybody got to enjoy the rich, creamy, luscious taste of the Hershey bar. So I am quite sure that Hershey bars were made for sharing. And if we were together, we would pass this around the table and we would share it. I invite you to do this next time you want to teach a little stewardship story, because the next thing we're going to do is see what Scripture has to say about sharing and about generosity, what we learn from Hershey bar theology. And this comes from Corinthians, the 2nd chapter. And this is where, forgive me, I'm going to share the screen again, and hopefully we'll get back to the right place, because I want you to see now this slide.
Brenda, we lost your voice. I'm not sure what happened there, but we're not hearing you.
Oh,
No, we're hearing her, Brenda. It might be your
I'm
headset.
still not hearing.
Okay. Everybody else is hearing, but Jenny is not?
Yes.
All right.
I'm not hearing you still. Jason, are you able to help? I know we've got a technical support in the background.
You may want to just share with Jenny in the chat that you can hear that it's on her end. Okay. All right. How about everybody else? I just want to double check. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, wonderful. Then I'm going to continue, and we'll see if Jenny can work it out on her end. This should all make you feel so good about not being afraid of technology. You just got to go for it. You can't let anything that goes wrong get in your way. Here's the passage that I'm going to share with you. It's from 2 Corinthians, and it's chapter 9. And this is from my NIV study Bible. This is where Paul is teaching the people of Corinth about generosity. And here's what it says. You'll recognize this. Remember this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves you know the answer, cheerful giver. But let's continue. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. That's what my NIV version says. I love the CEV version that I have shared with you on the screen. And it says, God can bless you with everything you need, and you will always have more than enough to do all kinds of good things for others. And so you will always have, think of the Hershey bar, when you think about having more than enough. It seems like there's more than enough to share with others. And that's the way God promises us that God has blessed us too. Now, we're going to have some conversation about experiences in our lives where we have surprisingly had more than enough. And we're going to break out in just a moment, but I'm going to pose this question for you first. And then I'm going to share my story briefly, so that it gives you a few minutes to think about yours. We really do want you to share. And so I'm going to invite you to share a story about a time in your life when God provided what you needed and maybe even more, so that you could also share with others. Start thinking about that. My story goes back to my time right out of college, where I started working right out of college in a ministry-based organization and had a very modest salary, but it was enough to live on. And even at that time in my life,
and back on.
Even at that time in my life, I had a particular charitable goal. I wanted to be able to make a gift to something at my college, Concordia in Moorhead, that was called C400. This was a giving club where people could give $1,000 and become a part of this, this group of people who were really rather proud and happy to support the college. And I had spent time as a student volunteering in the development office at Concordia, inviting people to become C400 members. And I knew that as soon as I became an adult and had a job, that I wanted to become a member of C400 as well. And it was a big commitment. This was back in 1983. You do the math. $1,000. And what I wanted to do and decided to do was make a monthly gift in order to give $1,000 over a year. This was 40 years ago. It was $83 a month that I gave, and that represented well over 5% of my income. It was after I made that commitment that I moved out to Southern California, where the cost of living was way higher than what I was experiencing in Minnesota. And suddenly, my salary didn't go nearly as far. Suddenly, that $1,000 a year, $83 a month pledge felt really big and like too much. And I remember wondering if I could even do it. And so I remember thinking, in order to be able to do something I wanted to do so badly in terms of a gift, I really needed to have more income. I had been a piano teacher in high school and also in college, but I moved out to California where I didn't know anybody, and I could teach piano, but I didn't know anybody. How would I develop a piano studio on the side of my regular work so that I could have the income I needed to make ends meet and still make this gift that I wanted to make? And it was kind of crazy. It was definitely a God kind of thing. When I had a conversation with my new pastor and some of the new people I met at my new church, I said, I'd like to give piano lessons in the evenings and the weekends. I really would like to do that. And I'd like to have some additional income now that I've moved here and it's a little more expensive. And within weeks, I had a piano studio of about 15 students, which was probably all I could really handle anyway, but 15 students in just in the course of a few weeks. And I had all of a sudden more than enough to be able to continue to make this wonderful gift and support my lifestyle in this new, more expensive place. So that's when I became convinced that I could take a leap of faith and make a gift that might feel like even too much, and it would still be possible. So that's my story. Nothing earth-shattering about it, but we all have that kind of a story, I believe. And so that's why I want to take the next few minutes for us to share those stories. Hopefully you've had the chance to think about a time in your life when God provided what you needed and more so that you could also share with others. We're going to break out for about 15 minutes so that we can share those stories, so that you can think about your gratitude for what God has done for you at different times in your life. Then we'll come back together, and then I'll teach you about some new ideas and things for you to think about. Okay? Are we ready to break out, Jason? All right. We'll see you in the breakout rooms. Oh, I hope you all had the opportunity to hear and share some great stories. I know I did. That's great. All right. And Jason and Jenny, just to check, like a thumbs up that you can see my screen all right, and we're back into sharing mode. Thank you. Okay, I think we've got everybody back. Oh, I hope that was a time that blessed you, that those were conversations, even with people you don't know, that really blessed you. I was just telling my group that I'm so conscious these days of the fact that we have these wonderful elders in our women's groups that really have profound stories to tell about, especially the Depression and And decades ago, when people really did struggle to put food on the table, their struggles were very different from some of the struggles we have now. Our struggles now are serious as well. But I'm so conscious at this stage of my life and having those kinds of rich conversations, asking this very question of our elders and hearing what they have to say. So I really want to challenge you to even take that question back to your circle or your Women of the ELCA Bible Study group and just invite people into that question. Tell me about a time when God provided not only enough, but more than enough so you could share with others. All right, so now we're going to learn a little bit more about this sharing idea and about what God has shared with us, what has first shared with us, and how we can think about the ways that we can share with others. And so one of the kind of like beginner lessons that I want to share with you goes to these two buckets. You can see these two buckets in front of you. And I want you to think about the small bucket with the coins in it as your income, as your cash. That's the money that you have readily available in your checkbook. And then I want you to think about that big bucket as the things that God has entrusted to you that aren't cash. We call those assets. And so it's your home. It's your retirement fund. We'll take a look at a few of these assets as we continue. Here's the striking truth about our cash and our assets. And now what I'm going to share with you are averages, because this may not be your truth. But as a whole, 90% of the average American's wealth is held in non-cash assets. And only 10% of the average American's wealth is held in cash or in our income. You've probably never thought about it that way unless you've actually written down all of your assets and taken an inventory of your cash and your assets and all of your different accounts. But it's startling how, especially as you get to my age, which is not too far away from maybe the average person's retirement age, how true this is. Now, it strikes me that our churches, our congregations have trained us our whole lives long to give from our income. We talk about tithing or percentage-based giving, and somehow we only make that connection to our cash and our income and what we can readily give from what we can share from our bank account or share from our checkbook or from whatever we might have in our pocketbook. And when you think about the fact that the average American is only giving 2% from their cash, from their non-assets, from their cash assets, I should say, we're only scratching the surface of what people really do have the capacity to give. If we start helping people think about gifting from their assets, now all kinds of possibilities open up for our charitable giving. And how we can imagine supporting the ministries we love just changes profoundly. And so that's the primary thing that I want to be able to help you think about today. What are some of the non-cash assets that you or the people you love might have that might make wonderful gifts? So let me just go down that road for a moment and give you a few ideas. So those assets might be your retirement fund. We're going to take a look at an example of how you can use your individual retirement account or other kinds of retirement accounts as gifts. Some people have stock. They may not have shares directly, but we certainly have them indirectly through our retirement funds, sometimes through mutual funds. Stock makes a tremendous gift. The umbrella that you see here under what assets I can gift, that's my visual metaphor for insurance, because there are certain kinds of insurance that can also make wonderful gifts, especially when you don't need it anymore. And then you also see on this slide a farm. And what I want you to think of when you see that farm is real estate in general, whether it is farmland, whether it is rental housing, or whether it's your very own home or even a second home, like a vacation home. Real estate can make a magnificent charitable gift. And there are ways of being able to make those gifts, again, without bringing any sort of harm or problem to your children or to other heirs. So assets make great gifts. Now, a lot of you might be asking immediately in your own mind, well, I can't give that IRA gift now. I need it. I need to use it. I need to live in my house for a long time. I can't gift that now. I still need my life insurance or some other insurance. I can't give that now. Let's take a look at 3 different ways that you can give. And without using fancy terms, I just like to think about it this way. I think there are gifts that you can make that I call the give later gifts. There are what I call give now gifts. And there are also gifts that I call give and receive gifts, because you can actually get an income from those gifts. Give later gifts are the kinds of gifts that you retain control of that asset during your life, and that asset doesn't become a gift until you die. Okay? So you give it later when you don't need it anymore. We're going to look at some of those gifts. The give now gifts are the kinds of gifts that you can give to perhaps establish an endowment or a donor advised fund. And these are gifts that you might give now, but they might make distributions and produce gifts not only now, but well beyond your lifetime. I'm not going to cover those today because our friend Jenny Peterson is going to cover some of those gifts next week when she talks about gifts that you can give now. So I'm not going to steal any of that thunder, Jenny. You get to cover those. And then this third way is give and receive. These are gifts you can make now, and you can receive an income during your life. Kathleen actually touched on a couple of these last time, but we're going to revisit them again this time. And what happens with these gifts often is that you may get an income during your life or for the life of someone else you love. And then at the end of that time period, then what's left goes to ministry. So you can make the gift now, but the remainder goes to ministry at the end. So we're going to look at some examples of give now gifts, give later gifts, and give and receive kinds of gifts. We're not going to spend too much time on the give now gifts. All right. Hopefully you're still with me. And I'm going to start introducing these give later gifts by telling you my story. So give later gifts are often the gifts that we can make through our will. Now, immediately some of you say, I don't have one. I've needed to have one. I haven't gotten around to making a will. You're not alone. Only about 65% of all Americans have a will. And if you need some help putting a will together, at the end of this time, I'll give you some suggestions for how you can make that happen. But I didn't have my own will until the day before I got on an airplane to travel to China with my husband to receive our eldest daughter. She's the child on the far right. As you look at the picture, that's Christina. She's our eldest. Lily is standing next to me on the left. And we figured that there was no way we should be flying home from China on a big old airplane without a will. So that if anything happened to any of us, our affairs would be in order. And so, yes, embarrassingly, it took right up until the last moment for me to have that will. One of the easiest ways that people give, and we did this too, we set up some gifts through our will and still have those set that would be received at the end of our lives by simply having a phrase in our will that directed our estate or a portion of our estate to ministry or to the ministries that we love. And so I just use some simple language here that any of you can use if you don't have a will and need to set one up, or it's time to change your will and revise it, and you would want to use this language to include charity. And the language is right here. It usually looks like this. I leave X percent, which I recommend more so than a dollar amount, because dollar amounts are going to change, but I leave X percent of my estate, and I use here women of the ELCA as an example. The name of the organization, the address, sometimes we like to have the tax identification number. I've also noted here that you can leave a gift through your will for Katie's fund. And so that's an example here with some wording. Again, you'll get these slides afterwards that you can use. So that's like a very common example of a give later gift. Another really common example of a give later gift is a gift that where you name a beneficiary of a specific asset. So you know how when you buy an insurance policy, or at your workplace, if you have any insurance, a benefit that they give you, there's always a form that you fill out where you have to name a beneficiary. And you can simply name ministry or your favorite charities as beneficiaries of any number of different kinds of assets. And you don't even have to have a will to do that. It's the kind of thing that you can do easily by just printing off a beneficiary form. And you can do that with insurance, with retirement accounts, with annuities. There are other things that you can transfer. It is called payable or transferable on death. And that's where on your checking or savings account, your other bank accounts, your real estate, I know in the state of Minnesota, you can sign a transfer on death deed in order to transfer your house to either a child or to a nonprofit organization. But you can do that without actually even having a will. Those assets can pass outside of your will if you say what direction you want them to go. And it truly is as easy as being able to fill out this kind of a form. And I just throw in here an example of a Thrivent form because a lot of people use Thrivent, and it's a pretty common asset that people use. So it's that simple if you want to be able to do a give later gift using just one of these assets. So that's my story. That's how simple it was for me and continues to be pretty simple for me. The next story I want to share is a story from my parents, Ron and Jean. And Ron and Jean, my dad's now passed, but my mom's still doing really well. And her favorite time of the week is going to church for her Women of the ELCA Bible study. That's a real life-giving thing for her now at age 85, very important to her. And mom and dad were the kind of people who supported the ministries that they loved their entire lives. And when it came time for them to put their plans together, and they wanted to think about the gifts that they would leave behind at their death, their give later gifts, they very simply just wanted to be able to continue in some way, shape, or form to support the organizations that had blessed them and walked alongside their family their whole lives. This is a really common story. I find so many people who really do think about it this way. We just want to be able to leave gifts for the organizations and the ministries that have meant the most to us. And we don't want to leave all of our money to our children. We want to leave like a safety net for them, but we don't want to leave so much that we disincent them from making their own way. That's another very, very common value. And so in mom and dad's case, what they decided to do was divide their estate in five pieces. There are 4 children, and then the 5th piece is for ministry. And the way that they were able to fund the ministry piece of their estate plan is by using their IRA. And it started off very simply by mom and dad naming these ministries that they love as the beneficiaries of their IRA. And then along came this wonderful legislation a number of years ago that allowed people to start making gifts now from their IRA as well. We call those qualified charitable distributions. And suddenly the gift that they plan to leave at the end of their life became gifts that they could now make during their life as well. And I know, again, last week, Kathleen touched on that. Jenny, you might touch on it again next week, because this is such an amazing gift. And even if you don't have an IRA, if you've got some other sort of a retirement plan, like a 401k, there are ways of rolling that in or rolling that over to become a qualified IRA, so that you can leave these gifts not only at the end of your life, but make them during your life as well. And the beautiful thing about this gift is that when you take a distribution from your IRA, you also pay taxes on it, because that has been tax sheltered for many, many years in most cases. But if you gift it, you don't have to pay that income tax. And so there's usually a great benefit to the donor to be able to make a gift. And so this becomes a great give now, give later kind of gift. And you can designate ministry as the beneficiaries. So that's a common story. I wanted to share it with you because maybe you see yourself in my mom and dad's story. Then I want to share this other story from someone who you might even recognize. This is Sally Frank, and she was on the Women of the ELCA National Governing Board for quite a few years. It was about 10 years ago when I met Sally, and we worked together. She didn't make this gift happen through me, but she had worked on this gift with a colleague of mine. This was back when I was working for the ELCA Foundation. And Sally really wanted to be able to leave a gift for women of the ELCA. But she also wanted to take the opportunity to continue to have some income. And I think what she had used, this is a very common thing to do also, was a certificate of deposit that wasn't making much money in the bank at all. They typically don't have a very high percent of interest, maybe 1%, maybe 2%. But the whole point was that she wanted to be able to make a gift out of this CD and still have some income. And Sally, again, was obviously, she loved women of the ELCA. I think women of the ELCA and her congregation were going to be the two beneficiaries of this gift with income. And so she funded something called a charitable gift annuity with this CD. And the cool thing is that with this kind of a gift, she was able to actually increase the amount of income that she received from this charitable gift annuity. It's paying her and continues to pay her an income for life. And so it's really a win-win for her and for anyone else who has a charitable gift annuity to be able to make this gift that will bless the women of the ELCA when Sally passes one day. And in the meantime, she continues to enjoy some income, which means that she can be more generous with her income now, with her giving now. These rates for how these gifts work are unique. There's no these rates are graduated based on your age. So the rates get higher the older you are, because you're going to have less years with that additional income. So I just wanted to tease you a little bit here by showing you what those rates are so that you can see perhaps how old you are. You can get a one life gift annuity if it's just you who will be contributing. But if you have a spouse and the two of you want to have a 2-life annuity, then the rates are just a little bit lower. But the rates are pretty amazing. So I'll again give you a source at the end that will help you know how you can do that. And then the other thing that I want to do is tell you Hilder's story. So Hilder is a very special lady in my life who has passed. Hilder was born in Nicollet County, Minnesota. She went to St. Peter High School and she received her teaching degree from Gustavus Adolphus College in 1930. She was really a woman ahead of her time. She taught English and Latin for about 14 years in Minnesota. And then she took and this was rural Minnesota. And then she took this huge leap of faith and went into the big city of St. Paul to be a parish worker at Gloria Dei Lutheran Church. And it was in her parish working years that she was such a force to be reckoned with, that the people at the congregation, and Jenny's smiling because Jenny's a member of Gloria Dei Church. I don't know if you know this story or not, but the people at Gloria Dei called her Hilder the Builder. And it was after she had been a parish worker for 5 years, and she was 43 years old when she married Einar Swenson. And so they got married at an older age. They were never blessed with their own children, but her whole intent, her whole life, Hilder, was all about blessing other people's kids and blessing children, even though she never had her own. Now, Einar died when Hilder was still relatively young. She wasn't retirement age yet, and she was maybe 60 years old. And she continued to manage Einar's farm for about 25 years. And she never worked it actively, but she managed it. She had somebody else working the farm for her. And Hilder loved Jesus. She was always doing something beautiful for her congregation, and which was just down the street, and her alma mater, which is across the street from her home in town. And so she always was able to credit God's generosity to her as her opportunity to do something generous for others. She was a beautiful stewardship model. It was in her like late 80s where she got tired of managing the farm and renting the farm and dealing with everything related to the farm, that she literally gave the family farm in order to be able to do some things for ministry that she wanted to. And so Hilder established 2 endowments in our church in St. Peter, one that funded a full-time youth ministry, and that continues, and another that provides Bible camp scholarships to anybody from the church who wants to go. She also endowed the chaplaincy at Gustavus, and she was able to do this with something called a charitable remainder trust. It's another gift with income. She was able to make these gifts by giving her farm and still have more income than she did even by renting the farm. So she was able to be generous, but she also had more income, which meant she was able to give more away. Now, I think the cool part of this story is that Hilder died in her sleep in her own home at age 103. And because she had no children, she left everything that was left in her life, again, to her church and to her church college and to a few surviving family members. And so, Hilder's story of generosity is just so powerful. Very few of us in this life will have the opportunity to do something quite that powerful. But in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to think about your charitable dream. It doesn't have to be as Hilder's charitable dream. It can be as simple as whatever your charitable dream is. I hope we'll have some time here to talk about it. But I want you to see the example here from Hilder. It was the fact that she had an income producing asset that she could gift and get some income that was even better than what she had gotten from renting that land, and that she could also get some charitable tax deductions for making these beautiful gifts. So the message that I want you to have here is that careful estate planning is another part of Christian stewardship. Thinking about how it is that we're going to plan for our assets to bless our children, to bless our heirs, but to also potentially bless ministry is another really compelling part of our Christian stewardship in action. And when we plan for the future, we can pass along the faith through our legacy of generosity. We can share the faith with future generations through our generosity. And I want to share this piece with you before we break out again for a short period of time. And just a heads up, Jason, I think we'll break out this next time only for maybe like 5 minutes. We'll make our breakout shorter because I just realized what time it is. So you all recognize the name of this woman, or the picture, excuse me. This is Katie Luther. You all know what a critical role she played in reforming the Christian church. It's one of the reasons why women of the ELCA have named their endowment for her. But what you might not have known is that her husband, Martin, defied the laws of the land to leave his entire estate to Katie. Katie was named the sole beneficiary of Martin Luther's estate because he trusted her to continue to carry on their ministry after his death. Now, here was the problem. Women didn't inherit their husbands' estates in those days. The eldest son inherited the estate. In fact, the laws of Saxony didn't allow for Katie to ever receive Martin Luther's estate. But I think it's pretty cool that that was the kind of relationship they had. And then Martin's will was so clearly directed toward Katie, and that he entrusted her to carry on the work of the church. Fortunately, we live at a time in history where women have all of the benefits and actually usually end up with the assets of their husbands. In many, many cases, women end up with the wealth to distribute. And we have the opportunity to do something that Katie Luther didn't. And so I think it's just so apropos that the women of the ELCA have named Katie's fund to support their endowment. And that endowment for Katie's fund provides for some of the women of the ELCA's global work, for leadership development, for what we call living theology. This is the way that people are living out their faith day in and day out. So you're going to hear more about this next week, I'm sure, from Jenny as well. But I just wanted to tickle that with you and tell you Katie Luther's story. You have much more power than Katie Luther ever did. But here's the last question for breakout. And again, it'll be brief. But if any of you have started thinking about your charitable dream, what would that be? If you could leave a gift that God has given to you to pass on the legacy of faith to others, what would you do? I'll just give you an example. For me, it's my favorite Bible camp where my faith was shaped and formed. And yes, there'll be a gift for my congregation as well. But I want to be able to do something really marvelous to the extent that I can for a Bible camp that's precious to me, because that's how my faith was shaped and continues to be precious to me. So we're going to break out, and I want you to just have a little bit of friendly banter about what it is that you might do if you had a charitable dream to pass on the faith through a gift to others. All right. And then we'll come back and we'll answer your questions and we'll wrap up, and then you can go out and deal with your leaves if you are from this part of the world. Okay, let's break out 5 minutes, have some fun talking about this dream. All right. So, one of the wonderful questions that came up just now when we were in our breakout group was, first of all, people who have all of these wonderful things that you want to be able to do charitably, people who you want to bless, ministries you want to bless. And the question really is how? How do I even get started? How do I do this? And there are lots of different ways to pursue getting your estate plans in order and getting your charitable gift plans in order. And but one of the ways that I recommend is using a resource that the church provides for us at no cost to us that is incredibly helpful. So the ELCA Foundation is one of the ways that is one of the resources you can use at no cost to help you put your estate plans in order and also help you make some charitable gifts. The ELCA Foundation regional gift planners are all over the country, and you can find them by going onto the ELCA website and looking for the ELCA Foundation. And all you need to do is find the regional gift planner in your area and click on their email address and tell them that you would love to have their help in putting your plans in place. And they will help you put together some of your financial plans and your charitable gift plans. Now, that's step number one. But none of these people are the same, including me. We're not attorneys, we're not accountants, we're not the professionals who can actually finalize your plan. The ELCA gift planners can help you organize it, but then the next thing you would need to do is actually make your plan official. And a lot of times that means either going to an attorney or revisiting or maybe revising your will. Sometimes it could be as easy as just changing your beneficiary forms, but your gift planner will help you know what that next step is. And then, of course, the final step is that we hope and pray that you'll include ministry in your plans. So those are the next steps. And I encourage you soon to make that contact to your regional gift planner. Again, it's the ELCA's website, ELCA Foundation. They can help you remember ministries beyond the ELCA as well. They can help you coordinate your plans for other nonprofits and other organizations outside of the church as well. They can help you with your entire plan. It's a wonderful gift. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back to Jenny. And we've got a limited amount of time for questions, although I'm willing to stay on if other people are as well. So back to you, Jenny. I'm going to take us off sharing. Oh, and we need you to unmute, friend.
Can you hear me now?
Good. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have about 2 minutes left, so I think we'll skip the Q&A today. But Brenda, I just want to thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. And I loved the personal stories that you told, showing your own family, showing your parents, talking about the planning that you and your family members have done. Those examples are so helpful for us. Mm-hmm. Next Saturday will be the final session in this series, which we've called God's Gift of Money. I'll be your primary presenter, as Barbara mentioned, not Barbara, Brenda mentioned, as we explore a variety of ways to make current gifts to charity, as opposed to the longer-term estate plans that Brenda was emphasizing today. We'll also be hearing from Linda Bushkovsky, the Executive Director of Women of the ELCA. She'll be talking more specifically about the Women of the ELCA campaign 2122, which is designed to raise $1 million for Katie's Fund. So please tell your friends that they can sign up too. Even though it's just the final session of this series that we've had, they're welcome to join us, and we'd love to have even more people participating. We hope it'll be both educational and inspirational, and it's free. So also, just as a reminder, all of the sessions in this Zoom series will be available on the Women of the ELCA YouTube channel. Some of you already have been tuning in there. If you didn't have a chance to watch live, you've been able to watch on the YouTube channel, or some people who were with us live wanted to look again just to check on a few details as they were reviewing the PowerPoints that were presented and so on. Any way you want to use it, it's there for you. So it's a great way to tap into this Zoom series, especially if the time schedule doesn't work for you to join us at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. I look forward to seeing all of you again next week. Thanks again for being with us. Bye, everyone.